All right, I'll call to order the Stormwater Board, Agreement Stormwater Board meeting Wednesday, December 8th at 4 p.m. Can I call, have a roll call, please?
David Payne.
Here.
Tim McLaughlin.
Here.
Forsyth.
Here. All right, I'll accept a motion for approval of our minutes from the last meeting of November 10th.
So moved. Second.
All right, any discussion about those minutes?
Yeah.
Aye. All right, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So those has been approved. All right, under old business.
All right, Chris Jones, Stormwater Superintendent, City of Greenwood. And the first item of old business is a public-private partnership with Oldfield Estates. I request a continuance on this project. We're still working with their attorney for those necessary paperwork.
Do you have a specific date, or do you just want to place it back on the agenda when you have the information?
I think that is wise. Just put it back on the agenda once we have.
So we need any kind of official action?
Yeah, I would just say, motion to indefinitely continue this until the stormwater superintendent places it back on the agenda for consideration.
Is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make that. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Okay, the next item we have is for 647 Cutsinger Road, and I think we have someone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
So we'll go up to the podium and present.
okay. Speaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, speaker.
All right. Well, I'm Tony J. I'm the owner of 647 Cutsinger Road. A little nervous before. So let's give you a little history, I guess, to understand why I'm here. We purchased the property a little over 2 years ago, and we were not aware of the issues of flooding on the property. And then started talking to neighbors, and they tell me that there's a tile that apparently runs to our property. Then I'm finding holes on our property. And I'm like, I don't understand what the deal was. When we bought the house, the inspector looked at these holes that were in the front yard and said, oh, they're an animal hole. And it ends up, we believe it's collapsed tile is what it is, because the water was circling, like a toilet would. It was going off somewhere. And I talked to somebody with the city of Greenwood about it. They said, well, that's not our tile. I said, okay, I wasn't even aware what tile was, to be honest with you. But I was told that this tile apparently went far back to Freedom Springs at one point. It goes under Cutsinger Road. It goes to this pond that's behind some houses or across from us on Cutsinger, between Blairsville and Cutsinger. And it feeds in there. And so we've had approximately anywhere from 6 inches to almost 11 inches of water on a lot of our property. I was also told that the flooding was really bad many years ago before Freedom Springs was built. And then when Freedom Springs came in, that apparently helped with some of the water, because when the middle school was built, Freedom Springs, there was stormwater drains added and retention ponds and whatnot. There's really not drains around us. Like when you go down Cutsinger, you don't see stormwater drains. There are some small ditches. When you go down Averett, you don't see anything except for some ditches, but no stormwater drains. And I was told a lot of the water comes from Freedom Springs onto our property, and it sits there. And then eventually it slowly will be taken away through a culvert that goes under Cutsinger Road to the pond. And the gentleman had told me, I don't know who I talked to, from the city of Greenwood, that we should put in for this private partnership application. So I contacted English Excavating because I knew him from many years ago when I used to, before I lived there. And he then wrote up an estimate to give to you guys. I'm not sure exactly how this benefits lots of people in the community besides me as a community member, to be honest with you, and possibly maybe in the future it would help benefit you know, other neighbors, if the flooding worsens and goes into their yards, because I have pictures of the flooding, just so you understand what I'm talking about. It has ranged from anywhere to about 100 feet wide to 400 to 500 feet deep, the bulk of the area. Then it, like a lake almost, in the pasture area, where we have horses and stuff. And then it creates like a creek kind of along the side of the house, not at the house though, that connects with the drainage pipe. This is what they worked up as a possible idea. So do you want the pictures? Understand why?
Yeah, let's see.
So who wants them?
Start there.
Okay. All right. There's paperwork. I don't know if you guys got the paperwork. Mr. English didn't fill out the paperwork the first time last month. There was some paperwork, and there was a lady named Allison. Okay, you're Allison. Okay. And so you need to fill out the paperwork and get it turned in. So I talked to Mr. English, and he got it done. He got it to me just on Monday. And so I sent it to her, but I don't know if you guys have gotten it yet since it was so late.
So what are you asking for help with? So I guess I'm asking. I know you want to drain the water, but where's it going to go and how are you going to do it?
Well, Mr. English has proposed working on that drainage tile or new tiles with, it's in the drawing. Some water basins, I believe is what they're called, and to attach it with the culvert that feeds into the pond. So a more effective way of moving the water more quickly without it just sitting there for several days and rising to large amounts of water just sitting there.
The pond you're talking about, is that the small private pond that sits pretty much right due south of you?
I don't know if it's private. When they did work on Wordsville Road, they added a storm drain across the street from our property and have diverted water from there, and they put in all new pipes that connect to this pond. I heard something that some people weren't willing to live on the pond to sign some paperwork when they did this work with Wordsville Road, and that they didn't do as much work on the pond as they had planned on. I think they were going to trench it or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, were you aware there was a small pond on your property when you bought it?
Yes, I was told there was.
Again.
It started as a sinkhole also in the tile, is what I was told, and that not the guy we bought it from, but someone before him.
Right.
Had that, and they filled it in because it ended up being no good. And in my opinion, it might have put them on the spot based upon where we see water sitting. We don't have water sitting there where the pond was.
Right.
I also don't know if the water table is a factor in what's going on.
This last couple of weeks, we've had some fairly good rains. Has it been okay since we had a little dry spell?
We've definitely had water sitting in what we call the hallway. It's kind of the lower spot.
Right.
But it's not been what you saw.
Yeah, it's not flooding right now.
That was from September 23rd.
Okay.
Those pictures were. That's probably the worst we've seen, but in depth, but not. We've seen that before, just not that deep. So that was there was a water tank, you know, and that's a foot tall, and that was almost the water was almost going into the water tank.
How close did it get to the house?
To the house, it didn't get like that to the house. It's staying away from the house for the most part. It is, there are spots where it sits and gets water, collects, but it's not right there.
Thanks.
Yeah. And I don't know if this idea is no good, if you've got, well, maybe a different idea, a different company. I'm open to that. I've never done this. I was just told to do this from somebody that I talked to about this issue.
Okay. Chris, you have anything you want to add? Or?
Whatever you've been presented with, if you send it to us on Monday, I haven't had a chance to look at it. Did you get something on Monday? We've been-
This is the drawing, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
we've been-
I can get that to them.
Okay. So I haven't had a chance to see. This is the property, what they were showing. So I showed it last time. You see once where there was a pond. And you can kind of see the outline of where the tile is or was a few years back. The improvements at Lehigh Acres, if you recall, we did that last year. We just replaced, because it is a city-owned or county-owned tile from Hutzinger down to Worsville Road. That's what was replaced. That's what the city's replaced. We didn't do any improvements to the pond. That was a public-private partnership that they couldn't get an agreement with all the property owners. So we didn't engage with that. One suggestion, maybe, the city has in sometime in the future plans to make improvements to Hutzinger Road. Maybe at that time, a catch basin can be installed on the north side of Hutzinger that can maybe help capture additional water. But I haven't seen any big paperwork on this. On the last application, it wasn't completely filled out. Our recommendation was not to proceed. So as I mentioned, I haven't had a chance to see any updated paperwork. Our recommendation still stands with the last set of paperwork we have to go with.
And can I add?
Yeah.
Just so they have to see that visual with the pictures. So the flooding is right behind the pole barn to the left there.
Okay.
And then it goes almost clear back to the end of the property. So that's where the majority of the flooding happens. And to the right of the house is where I was told it used to flood really bad, but then it didn't anymore because of Freedom Springs controlling some of that water running off.
Okay. So how long does it take for the water to dissipate after?
That volume of water,
Yeah.
it usually takes about 4 to 5 days.
4 to 5 days.
For it to really go away. Of course, it leaves a mess, but
Okay.
it's expected.
Chris, is this something you want to take a look at the current paperwork that we have and then give us a recommendation for what you think?
Sure. If they
Okay.
updated the application or resubmit an application, I'd be happy to go through it again.
Okay. Why don't we do that? And then, because it's obviously we're getting into winter, so it's not work that's going to have to be done.
Correct. You put on there, it would be till like the spring or summer
Yeah.
if we were to do this work. And then, like I said, I'm open to other ideas. I don't know if you guys give input for other ideas exactly. I'm open.
Okay. Well, I don't know a lot about excavating, but 75 to 100,000 seems like an awful lot of money.
That's what I thought.
That's more than what we spent to put in concrete pipes for Lehigh Acres. That's excessive in our opinion.
Okay.
And should I look at a different company? You think?
I would always get multiple bids on projects.
Okay.
We always do. We're required to actually.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's kind of postpone this for the time being. Let Chris take a look at your new paperwork and see what kind of recommendation that he might come back with us, and then we'll kind of go from there. All right.
That works for me.
We need an official
Yeah, I would-
motion to,
similar to what you did before, to
okay,
indefinitely continue it until the stormwater superintendent places it back on the agenda for consideration and possible action.
all right. there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Second.
you guys have any input, thoughts on it?
Not yet. I'd like to see the proposal once
Okay,
we get together.
all right. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we'll let you and Chris kind of communicate. He can let you know when he's
Okay.
done his thing, and get you back on the agenda, and we'll try to figure out how we can help you.
Okay, well, thanks for your time, I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in. Okay.
Bye
Want
now.
You want that paperwork?
your paperwork?
You guys can keep that.
Okay, we'll put it, we'll keep it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
All right.
new business.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump into meeting dates for next year. I think the board's been presented with the dates for next year's meetings. I think we stayed with the second Wednesday of the month. Just looking for approval of those meeting dates.
Anybody have any conflicts that you know of?
No conflicts for me. The only conflict I might have would be June, and I guess that would, you know, if you're gonna be around, it seems like June's a kind of a wrong day.
Yeah, it is. Let me look here real quick. I think that. Yeah, I think I am here that week, so, okay. All right, is there a motion to accept our meeting dates for 2022?
I'll make that. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, next item we have is public outreach and education and support from, we want to continue with the agreements and the relationship we have with Irons Company. There's no rate increase, so it maintained a $1,500 monthly fee. So, in motion to accept this agreement. Terms and conditions we outlined by the legal department, authorized stormwater superintendent to sign a report via.
I'll make the motion.
Just for the record, when he says it's not increased, it's the amount not to exceed is $1,500 a month, so that it's clear in there. So his motion to approve contract with Irons Advertising and Public Relations for public education and outreach services for 2022 in an amount not to exceed $1,500 a month. Terms and conditions to be determined by the legal department and authorize the superintendent to sign in the board's behalf.
Okay, so let's start over.
Thank you.
Tim, you make the motion.
Yes, sir.
All right. Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
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 I want to continue the next item we have there on the agenda for nature center improvements. We have a couple of things in the works, as you know, for several months, but we're just not prepared at this time, so we'll kick that to next year. And the next item, I don't know if we need to carry over a list now or later on with claims. I don't know if anybody can finance, like Kaylee, do that now.
Could I have a clarification on your nature center improvements? You said continue it.
Yes.
Are you continuing or just removing it?
Well, let's remove it from the agenda
Okay.
and I'll put it back on. It's appropriate. But the board should have the carryover list that's been forwarded from our office and the finance department. There was one last minute add on to that carryover list. I don't know if the board has seen it or not, but it is to Rescaling Corporation. What it is for an F-150 pickup truck, and that amount is $31,035.17. The rest is the same as provided.
All right, so is there a motion to accept?
Yeah.
To
To approve the carryovers.
I'll make that.
I'll second the motion.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Yeah.
Oh.
Next item we have, and I didn't have it on the agenda, but it's Adam Stone, who has prepared our quarterly report.
I need to share this on the Zoom or is it? I think I can see it. Okay. All right. Good afternoon. I wanted to present the quarterly financial update through. So this is a lot of this is through September 30th. So obviously we're going to be kind of quick turn on the annual summary as well. But we're trying to get this cadence where we're providing more of a continuous rate monitoring evaluation as opposed to doing it once every several years. And today's report is intended to comply with the stormwater rate report requirement as outlined in the stormwater plan under section 9-188 section E, as far as being able to make sure that the rates are sufficient for utilities, customers, and expenditures. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. So again, the purpose of this is to provide the board and the utility rate payers more of an up-to-date snapshot, more transparency with regards to revenues coming in, the plans, etc. Starting with budget attainment. So again, these are results through September 30th, grouped by expenditure classification. In general, the total amount expended through the third quarter was $2,566,874, approximately $157,541 encumbered at the time. A lot of those encumbrances likely just were approved via your carryover list. So typically what happens is any unliquidated purchase order amount is what initiates that carryover. So at the time of this report, it was just under $2 million worth of budget available. The spend percentage was 54%, 75% through the year. Now, couple notes here that you'll see when we get into the expenses. Earlier this year, I believe at your March or April meeting, the commission approved a rate study that effectively kept rates for ratepayers constant through 2021 to 2025, while at the same time trying to implement a capital improvement plan to get in accordance with the stormwater master plan that had been prepared. So one of the things we're trying to do is track the actual revenues expenses to that initial plan, and then provide more timely updates. So what I will tell you at the high level, executive level, your revenues are actually above that plan. You'll see that more in detail here in a moment. So that the rates are sufficient to the existing plan that's on file. They're actually slightly ahead of schedule. With regards to expenditures, when we had the Honey Creek bond project was actually pushed to next year. So that created a cost savings this year. We've also come in slightly under the capital outlay budget this year as well, just because of likely supply chain, those types of things. And then the actual operating budget is considerably less than the current budget as well. So those factors all have created a situation where you actually have a positive net revenue year to date, when the overarching plan was actually a net spend down over the first few years to
in that. So you'll see it more dramatically here when we show it visually. But from my perspective, I always think it's the simplest way to communicate these things is just looking at fund balance. So as of September 30th, 2021, between cash and investments, stormwater utility had $3.7 million in liquid assets. Our required fund balance for bondholders and external sources is just over $400,000. So you have adequate reserves and are actually above the projected fund balances as well. So looking a little bit more visually now, this is this is month over month revenue and expense aggregate data dating back to January 2020. And a couple things I would point out is the blue line is actual gross revenue. So it's all sources, grants included. And then we have the kind of dark gray line is gross expenditures, both operating and capital. And then there's two trend lines. There's a trend line for revenue and there's a trend line for expenses. So in this case, you bill quarterly. So the accounting methodology that's used day to day for the city is cash. So that's where you'll see all of your billings are collected revenue-wise as they're received. Okay, that's what's creating these big peaks and valleys with regards to the revenue picture. But what I tried to highlight is that quarter over quarter, dating back to Q1 of 2020, the gross billings from stormwater fees came in at around $807,000. That's increased steadily quarter over quarter to nearly $840,000 billed. So we see steady growth in the accounts and then steady growth in gross billings. Speaking of accounts, as of Q3, there were 18,793 active stormwater accounts. Our current 2021 customer account budget, if you will, was 18,702. So you already achieved in Q3 the total active account goal for this year. So you met that plan, and then each year, 2022 through 2025, we're assuming 1.5% population growth effectively. So it's a steady account growth continuing. So I think this trend will continue. The expenses jump around quite a bit, and that's because we've included one-time capital as well. About half of the stormwater budget is in non-recurring capital type improvements. So you have the traditional salaries and wages and office supplies and those kind of professional services and those types of things, but then essentially $1 out of every $2 that you spend are non-recurring kind of sporadic type activities, and that's what's creating that picture. Looking at the capital improvement plan for a moment, this is something that is updated quite regularly. Every couple of weeks, there's a group of folks that meet, and then every quarter we meet more strategically to look at this. We just conducted the most recent plan. This tracks those changes. Approximately last week or the week prior to that. So this is a constant change, and I try to communicate that with these blue text and then the blue arrows. So quarter over quarter, providing the board and then the public an updated investment plan, a profile for improvements that are on the radar in the plan, and then with the intent to provide as much visibility as possible into what's potentially coming as a future agenda item. So just pointing out a few of these. If you look at the 2021 estimate, the first non-zero amount, so obviously we talked about the Honey Creek Bridge bond issuance being pushed into 2022. That was more of a policy decision to align those bond issuances with construction timeline of Worsville roads. They're bidding and doing the construction more in alignment there. And then secondly, the Madison, that's the downtown Madison project, whereby the Stormwater Board has committed up to $1 million in infrastructure to public right-of-way along Madison and Meridian Avenue. While that was appropriated this year, the project just had its groundbreaking 2 weeks ago. You're paying out on, your claim is on reimbursement. So it'll likely be into Q1 before those claims will ultimately be made. So we're showing that as a carryover into for cash planning into next year. A couple other things, there was acceleration with regards to the County Line Road project and commercial owners investments out there, as well as some just minor updates with regards to future planning. Again, this is iterative, right? So every few weeks this is changing. If you have any questions on the format, please let me know. Again, the goal is just to try to provide as much openness as we can. Really, the only constraint that we have here is actually the bottom. And with regards to your rate study, you have here $11 million of planned projects, but our constraint is cash. So we're really trying to work backwards from the amount of cash that we want to burn down over a 5-year period of time, while at the same time being reasonable with bond issuances, capital leases, and those types of things. So we're trying to steady the ship, if you will, between 2022 and 2025 at a cash pay-as-you-go sourcing for capital projects of approximately $500,000 per year, with then using long-term financing for other projects. So the last item I have here is intended to summarize everything relative to the rate study that was conducted. So again, the rate study was a 5-year plan. Now we have actuals coming against that plan. We've done this presentation now twice. Did one at the mid-year, this is Q3, we'll do an annual summary as well. And so what we're trying to do is we have this 5-year planning horizon that we have. Now we're trying to compare those actuals against it. So the first part on the lower left is cash and investments relative to plan. So through Q3 2021, in that green column, you had over $3.7 million in cash and investments. And you can compare that to the 2021 estimate of approximately $2.25 million. So you were exceeding the cash target we had for the utility. The footnote there is you have $1 million appropriation that's going to be a cash source that we know we're carrying over. So when you take that into consideration, that's something that gets you much closer to plan. Then you can see kind of the rate study actually had cash slowly burning down as a mechanism to, as a source for that capital improvement plan, which is why we're monitoring it so closely. The chart on your right is looking at revenues and expenses relative to the plan. So the orange hat kind of the orange line at the top is the actual expense projection that was in the plan. The blue, somewhat shaded line, glowing line, if you will, at the bottom was the revenue projection. So, and this is now the first 3 columns are quarter over quarter. The dark solid blue is actual revenue, and the solid yellow is actual expenses quarter over quarter. So you're below the expense projection and you're above the revenue projection, which is what's causing the cash buildup. So with that, we will continue to update this chart, both of these charts, but mainly the one on the right as you go forward in time, so that you can see how you're tracking. So right now you're within the range of the plan, and we'll continue to monitor that in the future. So I know that was a ton of information, but I want to open up for any questions. Also, we're still iterating on this format, so if there's additional things that you'd like to see in future reports, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll be back to do a 2021 annual summary once everything has been reconciled and closed out as well. Any questions for us?
No.
Not here.
No,
Thank you.
not at all. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Alan.
You give me back up? Oh, okay.
All right, anything else, Chris? New business?
I'll just do that.
All right.
audience. I don't think we have anyone else here.
No, somebody else. Reports, council, do you have any?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody from engineering? Nothing. Controller's office? All right, Chris, back to you.
Back to me. Okay, we've got a couple operation and maintenance manuals. First one is for the Sheriff Schul's spec building, Greenwood Logistics Center, Block A. We're in receipt of the operation and maintenance manual. It meets our satisfaction and acceptance, so we recommend acceptance of the manual and authorize the mayor to sign what we have.
A motion.
I'll make it. Second.
All in favor of acceptance, say aye.
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 Okay, next one is President South Business Center, Section 5, Block 7. We're in receipt of the operation and maintenance manual. It meets our acceptance, so I recommend the motion that we accept the manual and recommend authorize the mayor to sign on what we have.
I'll make that motion. Second.
All right, all in favor of acceptance, say aye.
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 And I have two additional walk-ons. One is for the Emerson Point Apartments, Lot 2 of Emerson Point Commercial Subdivision. Operation maintenance for on-site B and Ps. We have reviewed the manual. It is to our acceptance. We recommend the Stormwater Board accept the manual and authorize the mayor to sign on the board's behalf.
I'll make that.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor of acceptance, say aye.
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 The last one is for Allen Commercial Group. It's Emerson Point Commercial Subdivision, the detention pond in Block B, the common area. The manual meets our criteria satisfaction. We recommend acceptance by the Stormwater Board and authorize the mayor to sign on the board's behalf.
So moved. Second.
All in favor of acceptance, say aye.
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 Okay, on to our field report, we had 12.92 tons debris from street sweeping at the cost of $658.72, 1.87 inches of precipitation, 42.3 was average temperature, 68 work orders initiated, 88 completed, 15 requests initiated, 16 completed. We had 1,925 locates, 55 ESC permits issued, 137 ESC inspections, 30 hotspots cleared, 6 BMP inspections. The Vector truck with various locations and hydro excavating throughout the city. And for education, we did a tour of the recycling center up in Indianapolis, which was very, very interesting and cold and a lot of that's pretty dirty. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, anything from the mayor's office? Right, commissioners?
No, sir.
I will accept the motion for approval of claim dockets.
I'll make that. Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, anything else to come before the board? All right, wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll be adjourned at 4:40. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Yep.